Why do you do this like this, Brandon? No, I'll just do this weird squat. Thank you for coming out again tonight. This is the 4th week. So we have one more week next week with Beverly. She's going to talk about altitude physiology and some other things. But tonight we have Colton and Noah. They're going to talk about human factors and their travels across the world doing crazy things on mountains that I don't do. I'm a powder skier. Colton always tries to talk me into doing weird things, and I'm pretty good at saying no up until this point, but I might owe him after this some sort of strange ice ski thing, because I don't think these guys like ski on great snow all the time, because he just told me they didn't. But anyways, Colton and Noah.
All righty, guys. Thank you for having us. All right. Before we get started, I also want to just give a thanks to Corey at Ogden Avalanche and everyone that came out tonight. We appreciate the time to speak with y'all. Can you hear me good? Good? Yeah. Okay. Tonight, we're going to be covering the oh-so-dense and rather hard topic of human factors, as well as the psychological components that correlate with these potential risks of being human and loving to shred powder. My name is Colton Edwards. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Eden, Utah, and I'm first and foremost an alpinist, but I also love a good ski after completing an otherwise full-value day spent in the vertical realm. I was first introduced to ski touring when I met Nicole and Brian working at Powder Mountain about 6 years ago. Within that short time of being introduced, I was invited on a trip to the Pacific Northwest where I was able to ski and summit 9 volcanoes in a little under a month. Ironically, I had no experience, no training, and was hoofing to the tops of these summits on a pair of 120 underfoot Ben Chetlers. God have mercy on my soul. Somewhere in this process of getting to know myself in these new places, I found a love for going up. It was after this trip I had officially become obsessed with the freedom of the hills and all of its beauty. I began to realize that this was just the beginning of a life lived chasing the summits of snowy peaks. The small hippie van trip I took in my early 20s would actually serve as a gateway to opening up new possibilities and to explore greater ranges and peaks such as Denali and Pico de Orizaba. Who would have thought being a hippie would pay off? Throughout this process, I have found myself subsequently intertwined with this hard-to-imagine game of chess in the mountains, a battle between myself and the elements that Mother Nature holds at our mercy. Through trial and error, I've become more and more cognizant of not only my experiences, but those I find myself momentarily entwined with. Using this as my compass to further my knowledge and skills, I am in some way still working towards breaking down my own fibers and getting to know who I am and what I am capable of. So without further ado, let's chat some human factors. Oh, sorry, we were supposed to have that on that slide. And this is Noah, by the way, so I'm gonna let him give an introduction as well.
I'm Noah Pollard. I'm from Ogden, Utah. And yeah, I'm just happy to have spent some years meeting Colton. Him and I grew up together going to Snowcrest Junior High in the Valley. And we've had a pretty cool friendship. And to him, I'm very grateful for adventures we've had together to accomplish some things and learn a lot, and especially about human factors that we're going to talk to you about today and how we are, each one of us, not just us two, but everyone, we are all in charge of our own human factor. And that's kind of what we want to talk to you about, is taking charge of yourself, not relying on anyone else, because in the end, you got to make your own decision, and you're out there to protect yourself and to make it to live back with each other here in this beautiful ski community and as an Ogden community. So.
Okay, so what are human factors and why do they play a role in our safety? Well, it is a list of the things you can see up here. Can you guys read that? Kinda. Nicole looks like she's squinting. Okay. Well, anyways, it's a culmination of things you see listed above. That being said, almost all of which are subjective to one's appetite and ability. It's true, human factors are so widespread on every individual, meaning that my human factors are probably different than yours. So in a lot of ways, I think that human experience is how we can further calculate our own human factors. Over the last several years, I've found myself slowly shaking the hands of several of these attributes I have listed above, which in turn is why I think Corey's letting a couple of dirtbag climbers like us talk to you guys. No, but really being dedicated to this walk we do in the mountains has given me, and probably several of you, many reasons to pay close attention to our own behaviors and tendencies and how they can affect us. Not to mention taking the time to process some of the high emotions and vulnerability that take place when in these environments. For me, both exposure to humans and rough environments has served as a great component to better understand some of these potential hazards. Time spent adventuring, Noah and I have found ourselves not really seeking danger, but in dangerous environments that require us to search deep within to calculate minor details that could otherwise be life-saving. So tonight, I'm going to try and do my best to help identify some of these discrepancies that yield a risk on ourselves and each other. Kind of to highlight where we fall short. The goal is not really to become perfect, but to more or less pay attention. That being said, let's jump into our first topic here. Okay, so we have the anchoring effect. This is when we prematurely settle on an opinion based on initial information. The anchoring effect can also play more of a role in one's mental security rather than overall safety. It's a lot like what we like to see rather than what is actually there. This is why in some cases we cling ourselves to initial opinions or information rather than coming up with it on our own. So for example, John checks the Avi report the night before and sees that all slopes and aspects are green, assumes the risk to be lower considering the report, and fails to take standard precautions and ignores or is unaware of all other signs of instability. As a result, he triggers a wind slab created the night before. So in this scenario, John attaches himself to the idea that because the Avi report says everything is fine, everything must be fine. Why would someone do such a thing, you ask? I think in a lot of ways, complacency can play a huge role in anchoring to an opinion. This topic to me lies on the fence of being unaware or unwilling. Unfortunately, I think it's safe to say that this will probably be more of an issue to a greenhorn. When you are new to exploring the backcountry, it is easier to submit yourself to an initial opinion simply because you have little to no reference, right? This can make it seem much harder to make personal observations that could otherwise prove to be life-saving. In a lot of ways, I think anchoring to an initial opinion is like putting all your eggs in one basket. We've all probably done this a time or two. Ironically, most of the days that I've actually seen slides or been in slides have been on days that I looked at a green compass and was like, woohoo, let's go get it, which obviously didn't play out in my favor. So check yourself, be adamant. Take these days into your own hand and use the compass, but don't let it dictate how you think your safety is going to pan out, more or less. I was up on Ben Lomond last Sunday, and while we were on the summit, I said to a buddy of mine, it's almost as if these mountains want you to approach them with a fair and honest mentality, meaning you get what you give. I think a lot of times we forget that hard work pays off. When you give a solid effort, it seems that we get good results. Kind of agree on that, yeah? What are some of the ways to combat anchoring effect? Well, it'd be to understand the fine print or key details of any present situation, to remain attentive. It's almost as if we have to use the effect against itself. In doing so, this helps us to better understand our own opinions and key details of potentially fatal situations. So in conjunction, develop new skills and practices while compounding and adjusting the already existing ones. It's the little things that make all the difference. The main takeaway here is question everything. And remember, anchoring to an opinion is a whole lot easier, both physically and mentally, but it also requires a lot less intention and skill. In other words, it allows us to be lazy. Okay, the Dunning-Krueger effect. This effect is awesome. Seems to happen in the ice climbing world, the ski world. Do you suck at skiing and do you know it? Is kind of the idea here. So the Dunning-Krueger effect is the tendency for people to overestimate their abilities both physically and mentally. It may come as a surprise, but lack of personal experience, meaning seat time, can be a huge issue. Can you ski a blue at a resort? Can you dig a pit on your own? Do you even own a snow saw? Please, dear God, be honest with yourself. There's literally nothing worse than getting caught in an avalanche because you're pizzaing down the mountain. Seriously, guys, don't be afraid to be real with yourself and others. Talk about your apprehensions, even despite being afraid or self-conscious. This can play a huge role in avoiding certain dangers. So in a partner scenario, whether that be ice climbing or skiing, I have realized that if the person I'm with isn't confident in their ability or understanding, this not only yields a greater risk in general, but it can lower the chances of rescue for both involved. Does that make sense? Kinda? Yeah? It is very important we pay close attention to our partner's weaknesses and try and promote being honest with ourselves. This could help you avoid being in places you probably shouldn't. So a cool quote that I found was, talk your talk, walk your walk, dance your dance, speak your truth, and be yourself. If you cannot prove this by action, then you don't actually mean it. Before we get too far into the underconfidence and denial aspect of this, I think it's important that we mention, just because you've been touring your whole life, or you have your Avi certs, or you've climbed Denali, you've made remarks on other big mountain ranges, you're still not untouchable. Even the best can fall down. Can't win them all. So whose job would it be to monitor these things? A lot of times it seems like it's going to be the individual that has countless hours and experiences that can ultimately pick up on these otherwise factors. I find that self-awareness and character development is a long sought-out process that every climber, skier, or mountain adventurer will go through over time. It's about finding balance between one's skill, knowledge, and becoming more self-aware, meaning put in the work where it's needed. As well as we should constantly try our best to identify these threats we pose on ourselves and each other. So with that being said, Noah's going to kind of highlight a trip that we had in our first year of climbing together. compartmentalize those limits, helping you to better judge what your own possibilities are. Now, I'm not telling anyone here to go solo. I'm just trying to shed light on how incredible it is for a climber such as Alex Honnold's to be able to manage his risks so well, not having any other umbilical cord of safety other than himself. We all have to admit, despite that being crazy, he is the king of risk management. He has had thousands, well, I wouldn't say thousands, maybe hundreds of ascents that were proven to be successful without any ropes. So this, it pertains to people that are more in the mountains. I know soloing is kind of a rough subject, but in the years of taking place in the mountains and doing the climbing, I've definitely leaned to this mindset a little bit. Okay, so therefore getting to understand his own discrepancies to the core, I'm drawn to believe that this is what has made him so successful on so many incredibly large and hard climbs. Through climbing for fun and work, I'm starting to realize how much we do actually dictate our own success. Getting good rest, eating well, stretching, overall maintenance. On the other hand, I've found a good recipe for disaster usually teeters on lack of preparation, involvement, and consistency. Now, there's probably plenty of examples we could do to explain this, but I'm going to use the good old off the couch term. This is often referred to doing something with little to no prep work. Now, I can't prove this to be true, but this is a perfect recipe to lower your margins of success and safety dramatically. So some things that come to mind for me in risk management is a lot of times put your money where your mouth is, don't play games, improve bad situations, build confidence to help better understand your limits, start planning ahead of time, be adamant, stay consistent, and remain aware. So in relation to risk management, I kind of want to touch a little bit on Cutler. For years, I used to look over there and just think that was a fire-breathing dragon. And as I've gotten to become familiar with this mountain, the terrain, kind of the conditions, characteristics, and so on and so forth, I really began to realize that, being able to make your own observations kind of gives you peace of mind, not really weighing all your odds onto an Avi report or someone else's opinion. So with that being said, I really do think Cutler, at least up to Dead Tree, is a great place to go expand your horizons in terms of taking risk and getting to know your capability and further your knowledge. Okay, so Noah's going to give a little spiel on Denali here.
Ready. I get story time number 2. So spring a few years ago, 2022, Colton and Matt, our friend, and I had the opportunity we were going to try to attempt a free ascent of an old line called the West Direct that goes up Denali. It's a different variation of the West Rib, kind of, if anyone is familiar with Denali. It was put up by a female team from Japan in the 70s. They aided up it, kind of old Alpine style, and so we wanted to try to, Brady. We wanted to try to free it and do it in a day so we could not spend more time in that miserable place. No, it wasn't. It was awesome. It was miserable, but it was awesome. But really what we're getting at with all of this risk management is we spent years, even from the first day that Colton and I met up with each other on accident touring, talking about doing something like this, and a lot of years assessing our own risk management, like our previous Dunning-Krueger effect climb on Osler. Any opportunity that we had, every weekend, every waking moment, thinking about how to do this and return home, which is kind of a trope in the outdoor community, and especially in climbing, is that the most important part is to come home, which is true. So you can do it again. So there are a lot of different ways that we wanted to touch on and how we managed our risk. This was as a team, which was very important for us and continues to be as climbing partners and with other people in our life. But we spend a lot of time strategizing and looking at Google Maps and flying around it on a virtual helicopter and looking at every single possible angle, overanalyzing it, having nightmares about it. We climbed a lot of ice that year. That was an awesome year of living out of Colton's van every weekend and sleeping in Leicester. His van was awesome. my back is ruined for the rest of my life for that one. We trained really hard, which is something that, like you go up Cutler and it's a pretty easy day. Like I took my dad who's here, he's old and he's even my dad can get up Cutler. So no, I am eternally grateful for my dad and his role in my outdoor experience. But we have this awesome place in our backyard everywhere, not just Cutler. I say Cutler because I know that's where 90% of us go most of the time, which is awesome because it's awesome. But it's important for us as far as training hard and risk management. There's a cool podcast called, actually, shit, I forgot what it was called. It's a cool climbing podcast. But there's this climber named Hayden Kennedy. He's the late Hayden Kennedy. He was an amazing alpinist, a younger dude. But he's talking in this interview about how one of the most important things for him and his safety and his partner's safety, whoever he's out with that day, whoever you're out on Cutler that day, is your own personal fitness, physically and mentally, which you don't have to be perfect, but it's important to remember, like, in his situation as a major time alpine climber, the stronger you are, the better you're going to be able to haul your buddy up on a line if he falls and he's unconscious or whatever circumstance may arise. So we put a lot of time into training, a lot of time going to the front and doing mindless weightlifting. We did crevasse rescue sessions. Our friend Beck came to a few. We would just sit there and get too stoned a little bit and try to figure out how to rescue each other and our pulks from crevasses, it's important too to consider all the different things that could go on. And a lot of time overall, just a lot of time spent being vulnerable. We allowed ourselves to be vulnerable with each other and to be vulnerable to Mother Nature, and to just push ourselves and learn more about our risk tolerance and our ability to learn in risky situations, and to come home from risky situations. So yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna further probably hit a few key components of partnership here. Let's see here. So in correlation to partnership, I wanted to give a brief story about Noah and I climbing a feature on the northwest side of the Pfeifferhorn earlier this year. It was right before the new year. It was that dry spell at the end of December. Ice wasn't really forming and Abby was low. So I thought to myself, what a better time to take a really long walk to then hook ourselves at a 650-foot tall mixed route with skis on our back and ski boots in our bags. Many of you may know or have done the Pfeifferhorn. It's still, even the standard route is still somewhat of an epic day out. It's definitely not comparable to like Denali or maybe even the Teton, but it's still a long day out, especially if you ski the Northwest Couloir. Getting out of Hogum's Fork down to the Little Cottonwood Road it's heinous. So it was after this climb that it dawned on me that the time spent, it had dawned on me that Noah and I have spent hundreds of days climbing, skiing, and training and being together. This is kind of what I think has made all the success, a culmination of all these things we've done the last 4 years has really given us sort of the pathway to being able to do some of these things. So I kind of want to highlight what really helped us that day on the Pfeifferhorn. For one, it was skis. So him and I, before we got into climbing, we were both skiers. We were very versed in this. I've been doing it since I was 7. I really don't see a lot of climbers out there with skis, but I think him and I have learned that this is a very large component in getting off mountains, especially if you want to climb cool features. So we did make that compromise in putting skis and boots on our bags, but ultimately led us to get out of there faster and have a couple smiles on the way down. Had we not done this, we probably would have been post-holing for an extra 10 hours this day. So we knew what to look for in this route. I had, again, done the whole Google image thing for hours and hours trying to figure out how to make the walk manageable and how to kind of do this almost figure eight of a circle to be able to get something of this scale done in one day. So another thing that I think helped was our awareness to our ability level. Now it's taken, this last 4 years and we're still working towards it, but it has taken a while for us to learn what our ability level is, whether that be individually or as a team. We've spent time trying to figure that out. Let's see here. So seat time, it has continuity towards awareness and ability. You have to do something long enough to then be able to cultivate or try and understand your awareness to your ability level. We also, like Noah was saying, we've done a lot of individual training. We end up spending countless hours in the gym or in our backyards just touring. We're always kind of biting at the bit to then further ourselves when we take the risk on these bigger climbs. Okay. So this is kind of the route we did. It's kind of surprising. I was just talking to Noah's dad and him earlier that not a lot of people really use these mountains. I mean, it's all about easy access and stuff. It's quite surprising to me that there seems to be maybe a few rock routes up this in the summer, but the fact that no one has really tried to do any mixed climbing up this it's pretty crazy to me. So these are just a couple of the photos. This is on the, what is that, third pitch. This was the crux pitch. That's Noah coming up the crux pitch, which climbing with skis. You can see in this far right photo, I actually took my backpack off because it was just heinous, scratching that little roof where he was. He ended up doing it with skis, which hats off to Noah. But yeah, so this was kind of an epic for us, but it went really smoothly, which to me was kind of a breath of fresh air to what we've had experienced in the past. So anyways, this is also kind of what we ended up doing. Now we could have skied the Northwest Couloir. I've done this before, but like I said, coming down this drainage puts you way far away from White Bend Trailhead. So we ended up kind of doing that circle there, which then allowed us to ski right back to our car. We ended up doing this mission in, I think, a little under 12 hours. So yeah. Animals. Let's see. Okay, the sunk cost fallacy. We've come all this way to just turn around. This is a reluctance to abandon strategy because we have invested heavily in it, even when a different course of action is clearly more beneficial. Don't be afraid to slow down or turn around to be sure that you're making the best possible decisions. Just because you prepared to be out all day does not mean that Mother Nature will agree. Oftentimes, she will tell you when and where to deviate. Trust your gut. Intuition is key. When all else fails and you've lost everything on your tool belt, we really only have our intuition, and this is what really makes our decision-making hard. More often than not, Noah find ourselves kind of checking on ice features or skis, or possible ski lines, rather than actually doing them. I think that this plays a huge role in our safety as climbers and skiers to help better know when you're in too deep. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to let Noah talk about the ice couloir that we tried to do on Denali. So there was a 3,000-foot feature that Noah and I really wanted to climb. I was in Mexico a year and a half prior to attempting Denali, and I found a guidebook that had little to no information about this so-called West Direct route. It was kind of the seed planted. I obsessed over this for years. I got Noah and Matt on board, and we ended up trying this thing. It was a lot of strategic planning, and this is kind of how it went.
Alrighty, story time number 3. So in this photo on the left, this was at about 13,500 feet. Colton, you can see his rope running out to him. He had sunk in some ice screws on this thing that we had, this big ice boulder we had bivvied at for the night. And this morning, this was the epitome for us of sunk cost fallacy. This morning, the previous day, I guess maybe we should start there. Him and I had left our buddy Matt. He's not as big into the climbing aspect of things, so he was base camp mama for us. He made us a good meal and sent us on our way and gave us a spank and took our photo. And then he skied switch back down to camp, which was cool. But the way that this section of Denali worked was we had to leave our base camp at 14, go up to a ridge at about 16, and then drop back down to about 13.5, which is where this photo is. And then the climb was right below Colton there on the edge. So it was a bit of an effort to get out there in the first place, but this was our whole planning. Like, everything we talked about was this climb that Colton was standing right below, right there. Like, we had been foaming at the mouth to stand where he's standing and look at it. And we had wrapped in a little bit the night before, and then just had a horrible, absolutely miserable night bivvy camp up there. I, of course, only had my 15-degree bag, and it was like -15. Colton spooned me, so that was nice. But I didn't really sleep. I think I still have some frostbite still and fungus all over my toes. No, but we woke up that morning after a miserable night, and I said to Colton the night before, well, no, I said to Colton the morning that we woke up, as we were trying to decide what to do. He had wrapped out to the end, and I just said, it felt like last night it was the last time I was going to be writing in my journal. And I didn't want to let that dictate what we did. So we continue until, as Jimmy Chin would say, you go until it doesn't make sense. But waking up that morning, the culmination of all of our effort came to bailing based on just feeling horrible kind of in the morning. It was a very beautiful, as you can see, it's such a beautiful photo with Foraker in the background. I have a lot of really good photos of Colton out on that Serac, which is crazy. That Serac is hanging over like 10,000 feet and he's standing right on the edge. It's cool. But just a lot of effort to put into bail, but what a beautiful moment, what an ominous and beautiful morning that we experienced together. And I think, a lot of tears were shed, and a lot of energy that we shared together kind of all culminated together. It's a moment that I'm always thankful for in my life. And I think a choice that we made that saved both of our lives, that we, even getting back up to 16 that day, we were struggling. So it would have been, maybe we would have made it, maybe not, but it would have been quite the endeavor. But kind of going back to partnership too, in the previous slides, is in your partnerships, it's important to have that trust with your partner. Going outside is awesome and fun, and like, we are all here tonight because we love that. But it's also important to be honest with yourself and your partner when you need to, so that you can come back to Rooster's B Street and have a beer next weekend, Yeah. But yeah, it's important not to let what you want to do get in the way of what you maybe should do.
Okay, this is just a video to further the beauty here of this 3,000-foot ice couloir. So like Noah had mentioned, we just had put so much effort into this to turn around. It definitely broke us down to our finest fibers to understand kind of where to bail and to not get in too deep. Again, the ultimate goal is to just come home and to make further climbs in the future. Maybe, come on. Okay, so this photo is on Beehive Peak. I swam through neck deep snow with Jared here. This was a terrible day, but a great day in the same sense. So using a strategic mindset, I think I'm going to briefly touch on this because I think we all know, but as an individual, it's really important to develop your own sort of strategy. You know, I can't really tell you what a strategic mindset is other than you'll probably find out yourself by a lot of trial and error. You know, I can give you some core fundamentals, but really it is within you breaking down all of your own fibers and getting to know yourself. I think sometimes we promote more knowledge than experience sometimes, and that's kind of the root of this discussion. So with strategic mindset and that being said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being multifaceted. If anything, it's encouraged. We educate and dictate ourselves for a reason. Use every tool on our tool belt. We don't just attend these talks to drink shitty beer. Learn and act with intention. Develop your own strategic mindset. Okay. So this is Noah climbing some of the best condition ice you've ever seen, probably. Yeah, Noah is a stud. Okay, so the only reason I have that video is because I'm going to relate a story to it here in a second. Opportunity cost. I think it's easy to get caught up in the fairy tale of the backcountry. We get hyped by our partners and we take unnecessary risk, and at what cost? Would I huck my meetup Denali without any prior training? Probably not. Noah and I find that when we emphasize on checking all the boxes, we tend to have more consistent results. We communicate, set a plan, and most importantly, try and manage our risk. In the end, we need to gain experiences by making decisions based on our own idea of opportunity cost. Is skiing Willard right now with 12 inches of fresh POW worth it when the Avi conditions are showing some instability? Honestly, it might be and it might not be. And that's what makes human factors tricky to define per individual. Choose your risk, make your choices, but whatever you do, own it. I think it's very important to have confidence in your decision making and what you're saying to your friends or peers. Same thing, but you know what I mean. So in correlation to opportunity costs, Noah, Jared, and myself, we went out to Bozeman last year to kind of make up for a trip that was lost in the Pacific Northwest. Right as we got out there, everything also started going to shit. We tried to drive rear-wheel drive and a front-wheel drive van into Highlight Canyon. I'm not sure if any of you guys know that. It's a very gnarly road. We got stuck within the first mile, and this led to hours of people trying to pull us out, swearing at us, giving us beer, whatever. That being said, after Jared and I had spent multiple nights in Walmart parking lots sleeping together, his van broke down after getting stuck on that road. We spent multiple nights together. We then tried to meet up with Noah to capitalize on this trip in Cody, Wyoming to climb more ice. And as you can see in that video, that was pretty much the gist of the ice that weekend. All conditions were pointing bad. We talked to climbers one morning that had just completed a route. And right after they had left and got in their car, I looked up and I watched this whole thing come down in one piece. It was quite crazy, honestly. It put me, it twisted my stomach. So weirdly enough, we went into Cody, Wyoming town, and Jared and Noah, they ate some ranch dressing from Little Caesars Pizza that was all sorts of coagulated. They both got sick and woke up to just, shitting and puking. And in other words, I didn't partake in the ranch, so I was actually fine. I was still stoked on the whole trip. I thought that there was ice climbs to be had, but unfortunately there wasn't. So at this point, the opportunity cost had gone down dramatically, and we decided to pull the plug. So I think it's just important to kind of manage that risk by not taking your partner's hype as a reason to go huck your meat for no reward. Okay. Let's see here. Now that is a waterfall. Okay, so optimism bias. Is there too much, or is there such thing as being too positive? We're going to the summit today, boys. Ironically, this is a photo of me heading to the top of Mount Baker via Northridge. Where then this was kind of a trip, funny enough, that me and my buddy Matt, prior to meeting Noah, we had, like I said at the start of this, I had gone out to the Pacific Northwest many times to go kind of train on these volcanoes. It was just shortly after I got over this ledge right here and belayed my partner Matt, who had little to no experience with ice climbing, but he made for a good belay. So my optimism to get up this thing ended up leading to Matt hanging from that ledge just below me because he had never ice climbed. So to kind of elaborate on that, of course, we all get stoked to get out in the backcountry. We try and stay positive, even in the most strenuous of situations. But there is a point of being too sold on an idea, which in some cases can be a perfect recipe for disaster. So for anyone that's spent time in the backcountry, they've probably done this at some point in time. That being said, I don't really think that pessimism is the answer either. I think it's important to encourage the balance of both. To know even that on our best days, our optimism can be misleading, and on our worst days, our negativity can too. Try and find continuity in the both. Okay. I'm gonna let Noah kind of wrap this up here on the spirituality component of this.
Spirituality. All right. The Avalanches are, I can't remember where I heard this somewhere. It's not my own thought, but avalanches are only a problem because humans exist, because we want to ski where the avalanches go, and we want to build $2,000 a night Airbnbs where the avalanches want to go. But really, all in all, like all of us as individuals, we all, like we've said before, we all go to the mountains for our reasons, and it's fun, and it's more than fun. It sucks sometimes. And it's like, for me, the mountains are everything in a way. It's kept me sane somewhat. Maybe it's actually made me more insane compared to normal society. But the mountains can be a place where you are you, and that's all you need to be. And you go out there and you go skiing or climbing or biking or hiking or walking or whatever you want to do. But we need to come to the mountains with humility and know that we're not in control of what happens. We're in control of what we do. And that's kind of the premise of what we've been touching on, is that each of us as individuals and as partners, we all should be in control of what we do. We should treat the mountains with respect and each other with respect, and learn from them, and take risks in them, and learn to continue to be better people. But we need to come at it with a humbleness and ability to accept the mountain for what it is, so that it's greater than us, and that we can't decide when an avalanche is going to happen. Like Colton said at the beginning, it can be a green rose day according to the Avi forecast, and then you'll get a heavy wet slide or something that you don't see, and all of a sudden you're buried. So any day is a day that avalanches can take over. And I just want all of us to think of how impactful mountains have been for ourselves and in our own lives, whether or not you ski, whether or not you even backcountry ski. Like, it's an important place for all of you, I'm sure. That's why you're here. That's why we're all here. So think of how that pertains to you and you as an individual. And just a final thank you to Colton, I do want to say, for the opportunity that he has presented me as a human being to get closer to the mountains and closer to myself through living and surviving through the mountains. And I'm thankful for him, thankful for you guys in the community here, and hope that we can all continue to live and make good choices, and also ski Willard on the fattest POW day possible if you want to. Just do your thing. Amen.
All right, guys, thank you for having us. Again, I think this is just what we are trying to say as a whole, is balance within your skill and your knowledge. I think this is really what dictates success in the mountains. And I definitely encourage the experiential side of things, sometimes even more so than the knowledge. But I do think it is super important to combine the both to get most adequate results out of a day in the mountains. That being said, any of you guys have questions real quick that you want answered about any of these missions, or maybe some of the dirtbag strategies that we've come up with in the last few years? No? Okay. Stay out of the mountains then. I'm just joking. I don't know. I would say honestly, Denali is cool in the sense that it's nothingness out there. You know, you really see an ocean of mountains and uncumbered terrain, if you will. But I will have to say the jaggedness and the aesthetics of the Eiger is just, I don't know, it's hard, it's breathtaking. So I'd say probably those two.
It depends, but I've cried the most on Ben Lomond, so I'm gonna say Ben Lomond.
All right, guys, thank you. Cheers.